I'm Turk Strong on the Theron Q Amateur. Thank you for selecting this video on sexual problems. Before I continue, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, now's your chance. That way, you can activate the notification bell feature and be apprised of my new uploads. Share the joy of this channel with others. You're starting now. Give this video a thumb up, lest you forget to do it later. Sexual problems. I remember somebody long ago told me everybody has sexual problems. I guess that may be true. I don't know. Well, probably you have sexual problems. Now, depending on the nature of the problem and the conditions surrounding it, it can either be just a minor annoyance, or it can, on the other end of the spectrum, be completely life-shaping. Not completely life-shaping, literally, but very influential in your life. Very nasty. Just like destructive. All right. And anything in between. Probably you do. You have something, sexual problem, sexual thing that doesn't seem to go right for you. Sexually. You probably have such a thing. Maybe experienced to any of the degrees that I just implied. All right. So, I don't know exactly what I'm going to say about all that, but I am going to give an example. I know what it is, so I'll give it, and then we'll see what comes after. Me. Myself. All right. By the time I was probably 3 years old, even earlier, borderline personality disorder was coming into shape, forming for me. Borderline personality disorder. And, well, along with that, part of it, one aspect of that is experiencing everything intensely, really intensely. And, well, that was probably by the time I was 3. By the time I was 6, my father told me about some guy who would walk around in town, just shouting things a lot. Back then, that guy's name was Crazy Richard. I asked my dad about him. I thought the guy looked really cool. He looked all right, man, but he looked kind of fierce at the same time. Crazy Richard. Anyway, I asked my dad, what's he like? And my dad said he's crazy. First time I heard the word. I didn't know they called the guy Crazy Richard when I was 6 years old. That came later. All right, my dad said he's crazy, and I asked what that is. And he answered, well, that's when your brain doesn't work right. It's out of whack. And your brain, he continued, well, that controls everything. So, this is out of whack. He's crazy. Well, I started worrying about this. That hit me. Wow. What if that's me? What if I'm crazy? How would I know? I was thinking this. This is a couple weeks after my dad told me. I know, I was standing out in the front yard thinking about this really hard, man. I was picturing that guy and everything my dad said, and I really got into a whole inner experience with this thing, man. I really got concerned for myself. What if I'm crazy? Or what if I turn, if I go that way? I became convinced that there was something wrong with me. And this experience was intense. Hard to shake it. I was just a little kid, remember, and this is like a major concern to me. And I started to believe there's something wrong with me. Okay, so years, but I didn't know what it was. What was wrong with me. I had no idea, but I just became convinced of it. Something along the lines of crazy or brains not controlling things properly, whatever. Right? I was wondering what it was. I wondered what it was. I figured it might show up. A few more years passed by, and my sexual hormones began to kick in. Well, they were kind of kicked in a lot, all the time, really. I remember at about 6 years old, noticing that just thinking about the feeling of my pants rubbing on my dick, a little bit of friction, I would get, my dick would get extremely hard, really solid, like point up, and I remember taking out the trash and brushing against the side of the trash can while I'm, reaching in to put the bag in or something, and my God, it's hard at the same time, and whoa, what a feeling that was when I was pressed more, This is when I was just a little kid, right? Like 6, 7 years old. I noticed that. But then, there's more that goes on hitting puberty. And I didn't know if maybe something sexual. I knew that sex would happen in my life. I don't know a lot about it, but it was becoming a thing to think about. I thought maybe, wow, what if what's wrong with me shows up somewhere in that? What if? What would it be? I have no idea what it would be. And then eventually I got the idea. Oh no. Well, and I let the idea slip for a bit, and then I got a girlfriend. The very first time we were going to have sex, maybe my very first time in my life, that flash of an idea had a little back further that I just let go of. I knew what it was. I couldn't get my dick up. It would not respond. This was terrifying. Imagine all the angles of thought that were hitting me, and emotion and belief, and stuff, because I was experiencing it again intensely, very intensely, very in the experience. This was terrible. This was terrible. What if that's the way my life would turn out? What if it keeps happening? Eventually, it didn't happen anymore with the girlfriend, because she didn't seem to mind at all. We never even said anything about it, but I was horrified. This is not the way it's supposed to be. That's what I kept thinking, man, and like, yeah, there's something wrong with me. I am crazy. And this is like taking over my mind now. My mental activity. Something has to be done. But there was nothing that I knew of that could be done. I had no clue. I longed for an older woman, maybe about 40, 37, 38, 39, 40 years old. Like a very kind and patient and caring whore. To get this out of my thoughts, out of my current thoughts, and in the past, and no longer applying, to help me with that. But there was no such person. It was just it was a fantasy. And I felt like at that point in my life, I thought this is the point in my life when something has to be done or nothing will be done. Because it'll become too deep. This was already getting really deep. Like in whatever else I'm happen to be thinking about or doing, that's in the background. And it's getting further and further in there as, well, the more I thought about it. So something had to be done, but nothing could be done. But I eventually got over it with that girlfriend, okay? Next girlfriend or next time, whatever it was that I had the nerve, after all that just happened, had the nerve to even let myself be in a position where I might get laid. But my hormones were incredibly racing. That was an intense experience too. This was more than I could detect from other kids my age, other boys my age. No matter what they said, how they acted, how they were thinking, whatever, they just didn't seem to have that intensity of hormone experience that I was having. Anyway, it was almost like shocking, constantly. Well, it happened again. Very next chance I had. Whatever that was that I mean by that, like had the nerve and so forth to even stay in a situation like that. Well, anyway, yep, happened again. And again. I was shattered. I was a good-looking kid, funny, intelligent, insightful, good person, decent person, with a really, what they call a bad streak, For some years, I was one of those boys that probably most mothers would tell their daughters to stay away from. But I was likable too, very likable. I mean, and beyond that, back then, whatever the word cool what the word cool meant back then. I was cool. I was really cool. Right? There's no good reason why I should have this shit going on. You know what I mean? It just doesn't add up. So what was really going on with me? That was a very deep consideration for me. It turned out it didn't always happen. But after a couple decades of me experiencing this firsthand, I did notice that there seemed to be no specific conditions that brought it on or didn't bring it on. The limp dick thing seemed to be random, really. I did notice some patterns, but they didn't seem like that wasn't everything. One pattern was if I met a girl, a young woman, a female, and I didn't know anything about her. Like maybe she's just walking along the sidewalk at night. I pulled over and asked if she'd like a ride, and she says, yeah, and gets in. And then she's talking about her life and so forth, and she just seems really open, no walls. Very just sees what you get. She was really cool, and it turns out she was a hooker. I don't know how I found that out, but maybe I just asked. But anyway, she didn't charge me anything, and I was able to sexually function properly. In other cases like that, 90% of the time, it didn't happen. So this means when a person is a perfect stranger, but more poignantly, puts up no walls, has no walls up about this. It's just easy. No having to be, this gave me the opportunity to maybe be in continuous involvement in what's actually happening, like just be that. Nothing that jerks me out of that and makes me have to look at the situation here and become aware of it. And then, with that intense experience, suddenly, bam, I kind of dissociate a little, like my mind would just go, I couldn't think straight. It just, terrible, whatever. Everything inside would just fall apart. And I would just wilt. And the moment's over. Down. Wow. But in these occasions where nothing like that came along, just an open person, it was fine. I also noticed that once I got into if I had a girlfriend and this hasn't happened yet, then as soon as there's a conflict in our relationship, in our interactions, as soon as there's something that rubbed me the wrong way, or I did something that rubbed her the wrong way, and there was a little bit of a disagreement, maybe the whole relationship had been going on for a couple of months with no such thing. And I like that. But as soon as something like that happens, for me, it's all different now. It's all different now. That kind of sets a new precedent. And then I feel like there's a wall up. And then the limp dick thing would start coming in. This happened in all different ways. All different ways. So it was really random, and it was what they call permanent. It wasn't temporary. It wasn't temporary impotency or, most guys throughout their lives go through, like have that happen at least once. And, you usually shrug it off because it doesn't happen. It only happened once. Okay. And this was like permanent and random. So I hope you can imagine what changes I went through because of that. Decisions I had to make, directions my thinking and my social interacting would go. For a long time, I wondered just what the hell the universe was thinking. I felt like I was the punchline in a big bad joke. So, there's an example. Oh, by the way, me, I don't care anymore. It doesn't matter. For me to even remember what all that was like, it takes some effort. I barely even have PTSD reliving of it anymore. I also have no real sex drive. I spent some time intentionally doing whatever I could to kill that out because it was a nuisance. It was just a nuisance. But now I kind of miss it sometimes. Whatever that would feel like now, it would be a nuisance again. Yeah, but, now and then it could be convenient. Come in handy. I don't even, I have a lot of sexual thoughts that go on throughout the day. Not a lot, but, they happen. But really, I'm not even really interested in sexual activity. For one, it hurts my back. It would hurt my back. My memories of it was hurting my back. That was some while ago. Besides, sex isn't for recreation anyway. It's for procreation. Still feels good. Well, it should. But it's for procreation. And when it's used as recreation, then there come problems. And my problems showed up the very first time for me, and it was for recreation. Really, it wasn't for having a child. It wasn't for procreation, so it was for recreation. So, and that problem started right up. What all factors played in, I can't even think. Various, at least. But now, listen, if you have sexual problems, I want you to understand something. Everybody has them. Something else to understand. You can survive without sex. It's not a requirement. It's not really even for recreation. If you do have sexual problems and you are sexually active, then that, I want you to understand that or from this moment on, adopt the self knowledge that you consent to that. You can either not have sex or have sex And whatever problems show up, show up. You consent to that, okay? And then that puts you in a position to be okay with it. You've consented to it, at least because you consider the possibility of sexual difficulties arising when you're having sex. But you go ahead and have sex, right? And they show up, you've already decided that that's better than not having sex. And if you hadn't thought about it like this before, then think of it now and in the future. You're deciding to do it. If you're doing it, and whatever problems come up, that's better than not doing it, okay? That's what you've decided. If that's what you're going to do about this. Also remember, recreational sex because it's not natural. Procreative sex is. Recreational sex, it's not part of that. Then it's going to involve some problems. All by itself. And if you have them anyway, due to other reasons, well, you're making the decision, okay? Own up to it and be okay with whatever happens, or don't do it. On the grounds that there's no reason to, no good reason to. And things may work better without. All right? You let something like that overrun your mind, no matter how old you are. I hope you're young and experiencing something like I did. I hope somebody is, because that's why I'm saying all of this. I'm talking to such people. Sex is not a requirement, and you will survive without it, and perhaps better. And you will come to be comfortable without it, if that's what you decide. You will learn to be comfortable with that. It's your decision. If it's your decision, if you have difficulties, you've got to be okay with them. You've got to be. You got to be okay with them. It's your option. You can do that or not do that, or just not do that. All right? All of this stuff clouding your mind, if you look at it differently, it can take over your mind, right? Bring on divorces, suicide, feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, worry. None of that should have any place in your mind if you want to use your mind for other things. Because that shit can eat you alive. You develop a viewpoint that I'm suggesting here, and then you'll be in a better position to handle that, to manage that correctly and wisely, adequately, efficiently, and in a way that your perceptions aren't getting deceived and your consciousness isn't getting hijacked by it, and then by whatever else, who knows, once you're hijacking yourself. So don't hijack your own consciousness. Don't deceive your own perceptions. Make a wise decision and be okay with it. Anything else doesn't belong. All right, did you like the video? We're at a half hour exactly. Give it a thumb up. Subscribe, get notified. Share the joy of the channel with others. Thank you for selecting this video on sexual problems. I'm Turk Strawman at the Rangi Ramacharaka. Be well.